If you're looking for some of the best old-fashioned burgers and cakes in town, Lotta Burger is the place to go for all of your favorites. Lotta Burger, 2260 South 3rd, Memphis, Tennessee, 901-946-2001. They're open Monday through Saturday from 10 a.m. to 6:45 p.m. And the items on their menu include single, double, triple burgers, Philly sandwiches, smoked sausage, beef hot dogs, grilled cheese, tenders, fries, onion rings, and more. Call-in orders must be done before 11 a.m. No calls accepted after 11 a.m. Drive-thru is available. Hungry for a burger? Lotta Burger, 2260 South 3rd, Memphis, Tennessee, 901-946-2001. Don't just settle for any burger. Get a Lotta Burger.
Graphic Printing, located at 890 East Range Road in Memphis, a complete print shop for all your printing needs. They do it all. Color copy, resumes, funeral programs, rubber stamp, full-color business cards, wedding and graduation invitations, and more. 30-plus years of quality work and service. They're open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Located at 890 East Range Road in Memphis, Tennessee, 901-345-9294. Graphic Printing.
Are you tired of going to the doctor with the same issue over and over again and never getting any relief? Are you tired of buying all types of vitamins and supplements, hoping but not knowing for sure that they will keep you healthy? Or are you getting enough of the right kind of nutrients that your specific body needs? If you answer yes to any of these questions, you need a nutritional blood analysis. With a nutritional blood analysis, we can take one drop of blood from a prick of your finger and analyze your body's nutritional needs, nutritional deficiencies, and nutritional imbalances. This analysis can provide an early warning of possible future health challenges so you can make the changes now to avoid the negative outcome. A nutritional blood analysis can be used to monitor a health challenge before and after adopting an approach to restore health and balance. It will also allow you the ability to determine the effectiveness of various approaches to restoring and balancing your health. So don't wait. Make your appointment. Stop guessing with your health. Know what works for sure. 901-602-7063.
Welcome. We are live and in full effect. TalkBackLiveSPORTS in the building. A little new music, a little new feel, man, but we are still the same old show, man, ready to get it on. Another great edition, and I got my special guest on the line as of right now. I believe he's still there with me. It's my man from TigerSportsReport.com and the co-host of TSR Live. He is Isaac Simpson here on a Thursday. Isaac, how you doing today? See if we still got him there. Yo, Isaac, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, man, how you doing today?
Man, can't complain, man.
Awesome, brother. Yeah, I know you might have heard two different things going on there, but
yeah.
that's all good there. But yeah, but we're good to go here on another Thursday edition of Talkback Live Sports here in the building, which I am Joshua Midget, live exclusively on the Spreaker app right now, having a little tech difficulties with Facebook Live, but it's all good. We're gonna keep it rolling as the professionals that we are. But Isaac, man, a lot going on. You got the Grizzlies going on. You got the Tigers off a big game last weekend, and then another big game this weekend. Even though Tulsa is not, great record-wise, but I think it's still something to watch out for. Before we get into that real quick, last week, how do you feel about how everything went last week after everything we talked about? And, the Tigers just come out and do what they do, man. How did you feel about how that went down?
Man, it's a dominant performance. I think all year we talked about the Tiger team needing to put together a complete game, and I think for the first time, I think we saw that last Saturday. I mean, a game you thought was going to be close. I think Tigers were, I think it ended up being like a 3.5-point favorite, and they come out and just blow the doors off of Tulane. Tulane came in hot. We listened to some of their comments for the game. They're thinking they're the best team in the conference, and they just come in here and get blasted. I mean, just Tigers, both sides of the football, offense and defense, just special teams, man, just in all aspects of the game, just came out and dominated. And, I mean, they got a lot of momentum going into this weekend now. They're at Tulsa, which could be a trap game because everybody's talking about possible game day next week with SMU and all those possibilities. But even though Tulsa's 2-5, I think they're talented enough to where if you don't go down there and play decently well, they can make you sweat it out a bit. But last week, man, I think complete performance. Brady White, the offensive line really protected him. I mean, I don't even know if he got touched in that game. So he had all types of time to throw back there in the pocket, and he looked probably one of his better games of his career here at Memphis as well. So overall, the team, man, shout out to Calvin Austin III, man, the 2 touchdowns. He emerged, getting Gainwell, just breaking records every week. I mean, just a fantastic performance, and we'll see if they can carry it over until this weekend.
Yeah, definitely, man, definitely. And once again, we'll talk with Isaac Simpson, TigerSportsReport.com, joining me as he does each and every Thursday to talk Tigers and whatever else we had to get into, man. But so, and then I know a lot of people are surprised that I gave some props on social media. And afterwards, and like I said, man, it's not about bashing, and it's never really been about that way to me, even though I may go in, but it's about seeing what you see. And if he plays well, it's not going to hurt me to say he's playing well, because I want the Tigers to do well and to win, and that's what it's all about. And hopefully he carries that over. Even Norvell carries that over continuously, and the team and everybody into this next game against Tulsa, because even though their record, I still think this can be a game that the Tigers don't need to sleep on.
Yeah, I agree. I think Tigers are 11-point favorite, and I actually think that line is a little bit high because, I mean, like I said, man, this team, they're 2-5, but, I mean, if you look through their record, I mean, they go back, I mean, at opening, I think they lost by 21 up at Michigan State to open the season, but, I mean, to hold them, I think there was 27 to 20, something like that. They only lost by 21. I know that sounds like a bad loss, but I think to hold them to only 20-something points on the road, out 25 team, they should have beat SMU, played really well in the first half against Cincinnati. So, I mean, this team has some talent. They had a running back named Shamari Brooks and Corey Taylor, kind of a two-headed monster there that can give you some problems. I mean, and Zach Smith is a quarterback who set out last year, transferred from Baylor. He really has some talent. The offensive line is really struggled to protect him, and I think that's caused some of his struggles. But he's a guy that if he can get some protection back there, he can pick you apart a little bit. So, I mean, this team has talent. Like I said, they're not a good team, but it's not a game where you can just think you can just show up and go up there and win a football game. Memphis has got to play decently well, and you kind of worry about it as well with that big game on the horizon against SMU here at the Liberty Bowl next Saturday. It could be game day and all that. And everybody's already talking about that, like this game is already won on Saturday, and they got to go up there and play well and win a football game. So it's going to be interesting to see, but hopefully they don't look forward. I mean, Coach Norvell's always been a coach who's kind of been able to keep his team even keeled and in the moment. So that's definitely going to be something that they're going to need to do on Saturday to come out of there with a win.
Yeah, I agree, man, because, what's so odd about this is it's at Tulsa, and this is their homecoming. So why in the world would you pick Memphis for homecoming, especially the way Memphis has been in the past few years? If I'm the Tigers, I almost feel like, hey, look, we really going to come, just beat down on y'all just because of that. So that kind of surprised me out of the blue, where the homecoming team is really I don't want to say the scrub, but they're 2-5. So do you think that's kind of odd, or is that just because of scheduling ahead? I guess, I don't know.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting because usually schools will pick a team where they think they could beat pretty easily for the homecoming. But when you look at Memphis, it's SMU. Next week is actually their homecoming, but no one expected SMU to be what they are coming to that team. But I think that could actually play in Memphis' favor, though, in this situation, because it's a big game. Like I said, it could be game day. You got an undefeated team. If they win this week, they could be somewhere around right outside the top 10. And homecoming, even throwing that on top of it, is going to make Tiger Nation even more fired up. So I think that could probably work in Memphis' favor in this game. But yeah, like you said, that is kind of weird to see them schedule Memphis for homecoming. I guess you could kind of, if you want to use that, you can use anything you want for bulletin board material. So if you can use that, there's something that you could kind of throw in there to use against this team. And I talked with the Tulsa beat writer, Kelly Hines, on TSR Live earlier this week, and she said that the guys are fired up about this game because they feel like Memphis is, if not the best team in the conference, one of the top teams. With it being homecoming, like I said, they don't have a lot left to play for. They could still get bowl eligible, but looking at their schedule, they've got to go 4-5 and 4-1 in their last 5 games. And you look at their schedule, they're still playing UCF. They got Memphis. I think they got some tough games out there. I don't see them winning 4 out of their last 5 games. But, they still got something to play for. And you got a team like Memphis on your home field with a chance on Saturday night. It's your homecoming. You got a chance to possibly pull an upset. I think the guys are going to be fired up. I don't think they've given up. And you got a coach in Philip Montgomery who's coaching for his life right now, because it looks like if things continue the way they are for the rest of the season, he's probably going to be out. So they're going to be motivated to play this game. I don't think they're going to just lay down for the Tigers. And again, I think the Tigers are going to have to play well in this one in order to win. But I think they will. There's a possibility that Patrick Taylor could be back. I think they're going to ease him back in, but we kind of talked about that last week with how well Gainwell's played. How are they going to implement him back into this offense? Because, you don't really want to take Gainwell off the field. You lower his touches. The way he's been playing, you really want him to continue to stay in that groove. So it's going to be interesting to see how they implement Patrick Taylor back in, but I think there's probably about a 70-80% chance that Patrick Taylor does get some snaps on Saturday.
Yeah, I agree. I've been seeing some things, and I know you guys covering it as well, about Patrick Taylor and whether he's likely or not to come out and play. And it's going to be interesting to see how that dynamic works itself out. Do they kind of ease him in? If there's a game to do it, it will be that one. Instead of, the SMU game, which is going to be very huge. And you'd want to have whatever your running back rotation is going to be figured out by that point.
Exactly.
But it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out, man. But before we go into anything else with the few minutes we have remaining, talk about the Grizzlies, man, because I know we talk Tigers and everything, but the Grizz had their first game last night, and I'm sure you saw most, if not all of it. I know I did, and it was very interesting. They look like a team that's kind of starting over to a degree, even though they looked a little better than I thought they would in the first 3 quarters. But what did you take away from that?
Yeah, I agree. I was very encouraged with what I saw through the first 3 quarters, and when they were up by 1 at the end of the third quarter, and I kind of said, this is the test to see, and I put this out on Twitter after the game. Mm-hmm. It's always kind of the MO of a young team to get into the fourth quarter and kind of implode a little bit because they haven't learned how to close games out. And I said, Miami's at home. I got a feeling they're going to make a run in the fourth quarter. The crowd's going to get into it, and we're going to see how the Grizzlies respond. And it kind of, again, that run came, and the Grizzlies, Miami threw that punch, and the Grizzlies couldn't get out the mat. I mean, it just completely fell apart, and I think that's just something that you're going to see from a team that's this young. I mean, they just haven't learned how to win yet, haven't learned how to kind of bring things together when there's adversity in a close game in the fourth quarter. When things start to snowball, it just continues to get bigger and bigger, and that's one thing that, I mean, they're going to learn over the course of the season, but I think we're going to see that a lot this year where they might compete, play hard for 2 or 3 quarters, and then the team throws a punch and they're not able to respond just because of their youth and not having experience in those type of situations. But, I mean, I saw some good things last night. I think one thing that you really have to be encouraged with is Brandon Clark.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're going to look back at the end of the season and he's going to be one of the steals of this draft to get him where they got him. I mean, 8 points, 7 rebounds. I think he was +6 in a game, plus minus in a game that you lose by 19 points. That's pretty hard to do. When he's on the floor, good things happen. I mean, he can start to break. He's good on defense. He can even step out and knock down a 3. Usually when he decides to shoot one, he makes it. I mean, he doesn't shoot a high volume, but he's a guy that I think could sneakily get into that conversation for 5 top 10 rookies. I think he might be in the rookie game at All-Star Weekend. I think he has that type of talent. I think they got a lottery talent outside of the lottery, so I think he's going to be a steal. With John, you like what he only had 4 assists last night, but you look throughout the preseason and what he was able to do with setting his teammates up and things like that. I mean, he already looks elite at that. I think he's the guy that for his career is going to average double-digit assists, and you don't see many guys doing that over an NBA career, but I think he will. Question with him is he looks timid offensively. He doesn't seem scared to shoot the ball, and you would like to see him be a little bit more aggressive. I think he went 3 of 3, had 10 points early, and you were thinking, well, maybe this could be a 20-point night for him now, and he kind of leveled off, and he doesn't really seem confident in his jumper, and I think they're going to need him to be more aggressive for better or worse, even if he's not making shots. I think for his maturation process, I think you would like to see him at least attempt some more shots. So I think that's one big thing out of that I saw last night that I took out of Ja's first game. Yeah,
I agree. And, you saw at the end of that game, Ja was kind of pushing it a little bit, and kind of throwing it, around, because I could see how bad they wanted it. It wasn't just, I don't know if I call it just lazy, but you could see how bad he wanted to say, hey, we need to bounce back if I got to try to make something crazy happen. And it just led to more turnovers. That Miami team is insanely athletic, by the way. The guys, they got jumping all over. I'm like, man, who are these guys? I had to look up, in a basketball dictionary to find, or the encyclopedias, and find out who is Silva and Adebayo, which I've heard of Bam.
Yeah.
Bam is something. A lot of young, just strong guys that'll just fight you. Especially Justice Winslow. Look like he'll punch you in the mouth. It's just crazy, man. So I don't know what Miami's going to be, but I was encouraged with a few things for the Grizzlies. We know it's a work in progress, so that's going to be something to watch. I was glad to see Jaren after the year under JB where they refuse to get him the ball sometimes. He's going to be a focus this year, so that's encouraging. Just got to get those rebounds up, man. 2 or 3 rebounds I think he finished with,
Yeah, that's definitely the next step in his game. He's got. I mean, I don't think he's ever going to be the guy that's going to get you not 10, 11, 12 rebounds a night, but you got to get that up to about 7, at least 8 a game. If you're going to be an inside player. One positive I saw is John Morant got fouled pretty hard on a block, and Jared Jackson kind of stepped in and defended him, and I think that was really good to see from a young guy. I think that's good team building to see that Jared kind of step up for a job like that in that moment. So I thought that was good to see as well.
Yeah, I agree 100%, man. Isaac Simpson, Tiger Sports Report. I know you got to go, man. Real quick, let the people know how they can follow you and the website and everything.
Yeah, man. You can follow me on Twitter at Isaac_Rivals, ISAAC_Rivals, man. We got all kind of stuff going on at TigerSportsReport.com, and Tigers game coming up tonight. We'll have full coverage, man. So follow me over there. Go over to the website, again, TigerSportsReport.com. TSR Live, man, we've got all kind of stuff coming up, so make sure you check all of that out, man. We're always covering the Tigers, man, all Tiger athletics, not just football and basketball, so make sure you check that out, man, and you'll be good to go.
Absolutely, man. Isaac, man, always appreciate you for coming on, brother, and we'll do it again next week, leading into SMU Memphis next week.
Yes, sir, man. It's gonna be a big one, but again, man, they gotta go out there and take care of business on this Saturday, and then we'll coming up next week. Could be game day. Going to be on national television. Even 2:30 and 6:30 are two slime slots they're looking at. Could be ABC, could be ESPN. So it could be a big spot. But again, man, they got to go out and take care of business on Saturday, man. But again, man, appreciate it. Always enjoy being on, man. I'll talk to you next week.
Yes, sir. All right, brother. All right, this one, man, Isaac Simpson, TigerSportsReport.com, co-host of TSR Live, and definitely appreciate him coming on each and every week. So, you heard us talking, and once again, if y'all are listening on Spreaker, no Facebook Live as of right now. A couple little technical difficulties with it, but we're going to be back up and running because that's what we do here on TalkBack Live Network. We're going to keep it moving. So, and I do kind of I always like the Spreaker thing, man, because it's a cool thing to do. So, anyway, and plus, I put the link out there on Facebook as well, because you can click from there and listen, just like on our website, TalkBackLiveNetwork.org. You can go there and listen as well. But right now, I want to talk about a couple things. Now, Isaac did bring up, we were talking about in the last portion, about the Grizzlies and the Miami Heat last night. Watched a lot of that game, and I'm going to tell you something. It was really interesting for this fact. Like, this is one thing I've emphasized so much when talking to people coming into this season. You know, you want to talk about, well, are we going to go to the playoffs? Are we going to do this? Are we going to do that? Well, you got to be realistic when you talk about this team. Now, we're not talking about like last year. Last year's team had the pressure of when you have a Marc Gasol and you have a Mike Conley and a Jaren Jackson, along with some of those other pieces, that should have been a team that was at least a fringe playoff team to a playoff team. For whatever reason, the elements just didn't fit at the right time, and they picked the right time to go ahead and explode that whole experiment. Now we're at a point, as Grizzlies fans and Grizz followers in the media and everything else, we're at a point that we have not been in years. You have to go back to the Lionel Hollins-led Memphis Grizzlies in the beginning of his tenure. Now, most people remember playoff Hollins and all of that. But before then, there was a point where the Grizz had to reach a rebuilding stage after Mike Ivoroni's failed tenure, which was one terrible year with Mark Ivoroni, with a young Grizzlies team, you know, Mike Conley, Rudy Gay, you know, the O.J. Mayos of the world. I'm trying to remember who all was there at certain points. At one point, you had Kyle Lowry and Mike Conley, you know, two young point guards that definitely looked to be the future, but you had to pick between one or the other. All sorts of things. That's what happens. You know, a talented wing and Rudy Gay that had to learn how to win. They had talent, but you said, man, they just need to learn how to win. Now, we're at a process once again. You got a bunch of guys in their 19s to early 20s with select veterans here and there that have done a couple of things. But you have to learn once again how to win, how to finish games, how to play together as a team, figure each other out, figure out the coach and the system. And what I like is the fact that the Grizzlies started over at the right time in the right way. The new front office with Zach Kleiman and company, the new coach with Taylor Jenkins, the new team getting rid of Mike Conley and starting completely fresh with almost an entirely new crop of guys aside from one or two people. So everybody is learning each other at the same time, and everybody's going to grow together at the same time, and that's including Coach Jenkins. This is his first head coaching job. You know, he's been an assistant in the NBA at the highest level for years and years, going on 10-plus years. This is, you know, once if people don't know, he's from the Greg Popovich tree of coaches. From Popovich to Budenholzer, who's a Popovich former assistant and came under Budenholzer. He coached in the Eastern Conference Finals. People forget that last season with the Milwaukee Bucks when they lost to the Toronto Raptors in that series. Then he comes to Memphis with the experience of knowing how to build franchises and knowing how to teach players how to win, hopefully. So going into this first game, I had no expectations. Didn't know what I was going to see, what I wanted to see or anything. So watching it, I was really impressed because you heard Coach Jenkins speak on it and speak on it and speak on the fact that what he wants out of this team is a team that runs up and down. It's a team that gets after it on defense. And it's going to be a different breed. This is not grit and grind anymore. You may still hear that phrase thrown around, but don't let them fool you. Grit and grind is dead and buried. The last bits of it, as much as people want to say it left with Mike Conley and Mark Gasol, no, it didn't. It left with Zach Randolph and Tony Allen. They tried a bootleg version of it with Mark and Mike, and it didn't work. And that's no shot on them. It's just not who they are. They were an important part of the element as a whole, but on their own, they were not the vital ingredients to create a grit and grind environment. But nonetheless, we got I don't know if you want to say running, whatever you want to call it, but Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson led young group of guys. And what's so interesting about it, I was watching and you saw Ja out there, scoring the ball a little bit, showing off some of his passing ability. Jaren Jackson was the thing I liked the most. This is the first thing, a forefront in my mind, because it's so refreshing to see a new face be the go-to guy. You saw an concerted effort, especially in that first half, going into even into the third quarter, where Jaren, he knows his role. You can tell. It's another level of confidence and maturity that he has just in his demeanor on the court. Last year, even though he played extremely well, you could tell he was being led along by Conley and Gasol, them showing him where to be and what to do in certain situations. And then his talent took over the rest. But now, you're seeing more of he's got to play out front now. Doesn't matter how young he is, it's him and Ja. They got to be leaders. They got to stand out front and kind of bring everybody along with them. And I think Jaren and Ja are going to do a good job of that. Now, Jaren, once again, down in the post, showing that he can be a force. Lanky, not the biggest bruiser in the world, but he's just got such a soft touch. I mean, I remember the hook shot, the short hook and the first basket he made. He's so good at so many different areas for a guy that's about 7 feet tall. He did a Euro step in the lane, which is a guard move. One way, boom, boom, switch hands, layup at the rim with his length, long arms and legs. Just a crazy athlete, able to hit the three as well. Just so many things that Jaren can do and bring to this team. So I love seeing him as a go-to guy. Because there's so many, y'all know when we have talked about it in the past on the radio or whatever. Last year when J.B. Bickerstaff was here, one of the things I could not stand was the fact that they just seemed to float away from Jaren, even when he was on fire. He's not going to have to worry about that now. He's going to have to get used to being that guy. Now, Ja is going to have to get used to a few things. Now, as a rookie, you saw some rookie in Ja. Now, that first half, 10 points early, he was attacking, he was scoring. That's one of the things the coaches have said. They're trying to get him. He's such a good scorer, and at the same time, he's an even better facilitator. And I think it's turning into one of those things where they're going to have to they've said they've had to tell Ja, hey, use your scoring ability too. Don't forget that you're great at this as well. And belittle that part of your game. And he came out scoring, honestly. He did facilitate also. Didn't have as many assists as you would expect the way he finished the preseason. But I still think the future's bright for this team. Now, here are the criticisms. Second half. Third quarter was good. It was competitive. The entire third quarter, back and forth. I think the Grizzlies had a 1-point lead heading into the fourth quarter. The fourth quarter, the wheels fell off completely. Miami came up and said, hey, look, we are not going to let you do this. We're going to kind of put the pressure on you in your face. They're physical. They're strong. They're big. You know what I'm saying? It was kind of amazing to see that Miami team. Just like I was saying with Isaac a minute ago. Who are these guys? I can't help but say that. Who in the world? Where did they come from? With Tyler Hero doing a good job. Goran Dragic. We know about Dragic, a.k.a. the Dragon, what they call him. Bam Adebayo, who's a big rebounding brute, you know. And I think some of that physicality kind of got to the Grizzlies. I feel like it did because they ramped it up. Justice Winslow was down there pushing, and man, there was one sequence where he pushed Ja from the three-point line all the way under the basket. I mean, he backed down. Ja is a small frame, man. He is going to have to bulk up big time, but Justice is a, 6'6", 6'5", 6'6", small forward, and he bodied him when he got the mismatch. And it was like a rag doll when he pushed him under the rim. And I got the easy bucket. Chris Silva, this dude, this athletic freak of nature that Miami has, was out here swatting the ball left and right. Then they have Derek Jones Jr., who dunked all over Jonas Valanciunas in the first half in a play that's probably going to go down in the history of this season already. I mean, my goodness, the way he jumped on and over Valanciunas. And Valanciunas is not a guy that you can just punk out like that and dunk over without getting physical. And that was very impressive. But then I love the fact that Jaren Jackson came right back and dunked all over one of the players. I think it was Myers Leonard for the Miami Heat. And just a one-hand dunk. Took him from the three-point line, off the dribble baseline, one-handed dunk to the rim. So those are some of the highlights of this game to me. But you saw Miami went on a huge run late in the fourth quarter, and it ended up in a 19-point victory for the Miami Heat, 120-101. First game of the season. It was not at FedEx Forum, in case y'all did not know, those that didn't watch or listen. It was at American Airlines in Miami. So we're going to see where we go from here. But season opener, I believe tonight, the Grizzlies at FedEx Forum. A lot of stuff that I'm reading that they got planned for opening night. So definitely look forward to that. Hopefully it's a big crowd to give these guys the energy they need to overcome and get that big time fan base from Memphis down there to support them. Another thing that stood out to me, and this is the last real point I'm going to get to when it comes to the Grizzlies. Tyus Jones. I was curious how this might play out during the preseason because he looked really good in the preseason. If you wonder who Tyus Jones is, he's the backup point guard for the Memphis Grizzlies, Duke University alum. He's a man that was signed from the Minnesota Timberwolves to the Grizzlies to bring some veteran presence to the point guard position that the Grizz did not have at all. There's no experience at that point as far as at the professional level. And, you know, bring in some savvy and some solid point guard play to back up Ja. Interestingly enough, watching Tyus Jones play, he is probably one of the 5 best players on this current roster. I really think so. I mean, the way he operates, from in the lane to running the offense, him and Ja have, you know, they're 2 totally different guys, you know, from an athleticism standpoint, a speed standpoint, and you know, things like that. But what is similar is the way they think, the way they see the floor. And Tyus is a little bit better at it right now, cerebrally running the offense. His vision, he kind of takes his time a little bit more than Ja does. And I think this is why he's perfect to be on this team, because Ja can learn so much from him. You know what I mean? Just the little nuances of the game. Ja is more talented physically and everything else. And even he's more advanced mentally than most at his age at the point guard position. But I think it was so crucial. And that was a late move the Grizz made before the season to bring Tyus Jones in here. I always thought he was a guy that's underutilized at places he's been. He was a big-time recruit coming out of high school, big time at Duke as well. And Tyus is not too old either. He's been in the league a solid 3 to 4 years. So he is a veteran and he knows the ins and outs. But he's not old. So he still fits into the young culture that this Grizzlies team has brought in. But it's amazing. You can really tell a difference with the two in that sense. I feel like Tyus will make smarter decisions, whereas Ja, early on, he will see something and try to force it because he knows he's good enough to do it, but it's not always the best decision, if you get what I'm saying. So, I think they'll work real well together in that aspect. So we'll see what happens, man. But as I emphasized with Isaac earlier, Jaren has got to rebound better. He doesn't have to be Zebo because nobody's Zebo when it comes to rebounding. But you got to at least be Marc Gasol. And he's not even Marc Gasol level rebounding right now. And that's not good. But Jaren can score. He can do everything else, including defense at a high level. But, man, you're too big to not be getting some rebounds. 3 rebounds in the game is not good. When I believe he had 2 rebounds after the first quarter. And only 1, after the first half, as I have here. It was in the first half he had 2 rebounds. And the rest of the game he only got 1. Not good. Got to fix that. And I think it helps at the same time that Jonas Valanciunas is there. Because he is one of those guys that is a rebounder. He's a bruiser. He'll go down and play in the post and do all those things that Ja may not do. But I do think he's going to have to do a little bit more than he's been doing lately. But early on in the season, this is only game 1. But those are my game 1 reactions as well. I want to get a phone number out for those of y'all that may be on the Spreaker app. And if you want to hit me up, you can do so. 901-213-6020. And as you always know, the podcast will be out after the show on Spreaker, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. So, moving on in the few minutes that we have remaining, want to go to another thing we kind of talked about was the Memphis and Tulsa game this weekend. Are y'all surprised? I'll tell you, I am surprised at the Memphis-Tulsa game. 1 is at Tulsa, and 2, this is Tulsa's homecoming. So Tulsa scheduled Memphis, who's a 2-time AAC division winner, 2 straight AAC conference championship games, bound for a third if they continue to go on the path that they're on now. And Tulsa is 2-5, 0-3 in the conference. And Memphis is the homecoming game for Tulsa. And then next week, I found out that Memphis is the homecoming game, I believe, for SMU, if I'm not mistaken. Well, I think the game's going to be at Memphis. SMU is Memphis' homecoming game. That's what that was. Okay, I was just thinking about why I heard that, but the game's going to be at Memphis nonetheless. But even more so, this is more disrespectful here with Tulsa. Even though I've read they won the last 3 homecoming games Tulsa has at their stadium over the last 3 years. So that's going to be interesting. But here is the key. With Memphis, what they did last week against a very good Tulane team, a Tulane team that was 5-1 coming into the Liberty Bowl. And Memphis absolutely destroyed them from top to bottom. From Brady White to Kenny Gainwell to Kenny Gainwell to Kenny Gainwell. To the defense. I think that's about the order you could put it. Matter of fact, I'll put Brady White last, and I'll put Kenny Gainwell 3 times first. Then the defense, then Brady White. Because Brady White threw the ball to Kenny Gainwell and gained a lot of those yards. So, all that being said, what I want to see is what we saw last week. Now, I know you say, well, you can't always expect that every week. Well, why not? Man, look, I've always said the teams that Norvell has had as coach, because he put them together fairly as a recruiter, are way too talented to lose games like this. When you recruit that much talent, just like with Penny Hardaway and the basketball team, you're going to have expectations. When you go to 2 straight AAC championship games, you're going to have expectations. And you cannot, I don't care if it is Tulsa's homecoming. They're 2-5. They're 0-3. Tulsa has not won one game in the conference yet. You cannot go in there and lay an egg. You can't do it. And I guarantee you this, Tulsa is no punk. They have a bad record, but they also have a top 10 schedule, meaning they have one of the 10 toughest schedules in college football. So they have played a lot of tough opponents coming into this game, which means they played people probably tougher than Memphis or right up there on their level. They gave SMU, who's undefeated, they gave SMU an incredible battle as well that Memphis is going to play next week. So do not take them lightly, and I hope Norvell is preaching this, because I always go back to last week. Norvell coached with aggression. Norvell called plays to crush Tulane. The team went out there with a chip on their shoulder to crush Tulane. The defense. Brady White was throwing down the field 5 or 6 times. It was crazy, which shows that he has at least some capacity to do so. So what I'm saying is, open it up. Don't play around. Don't lollygag with Tulsa, because Tulsa, despite their record, can sneak up on you because they are college football players at the Division I level, just like you are, just like Memphis is. And Memphis is in the top 25. So I hope Memphis comes out with that sort of intensity that they did against Tulane, because if they do that, there is no doubt that the Tigers will win this game. So that's coming up 6 p.m. on Saturday. Yeah, 6 p.m. They've had a lot of afternoon games, but this is a later game, 6 p.m., and it's going to be on CBS Sports Network. Another interesting fact, Norvell, I don't know if y'all know, spent 4 seasons at Tulsa as a graduate assistant and I believe was a wide receivers coach as well on their staff. So he's got ties there. So that's going to be interesting to see. Hopefully that's another chip that'll be on his shoulder coming into this game this weekend. So big game, Tigers and Tulsa, 6 p.m. CBS Sports Network. Last few minutes remaining in the program. Once again, if you're out there, you can definitely hit me up, 901-213-6020, and leave some comments down below as well. How do you feel about Memphis Tulsa? How do you feel about everything that is going on with that team? How do you feel about the Grizzlies? I just talked about the Grizzlies as well. How do you feel about them? So we can get into all of that. So, last thing I want to hit on. Memphis. The basketball Tigers play tonight. The very first game of the season. Preseason, but it's a season. It's a team that is somebody besides themselves. So, I am very anxious to see what happens there. Looking forward to that. Again, Penny Hardaway's crew, the top 25 ranked Tigers basketball team, coming into the FedEx Forum with a lot of hype, with a lot of expectations, and a lot of happiness from the Memphis Tigers fans. How do you all feel? We're going to see the first taste of them tonight against Christian Brothers at FedEx Forum. Now, look, don't get me wrong. This is not a game where you're going to say, oh, man, let's see what they got. No, this is a game where you say, hey, maybe if you want to see, if anything you want to take away from this, Maybe you want to look at the rotations that Penny uses. Maybe you want to see how he subs guys in and out, things like that. Maybe you want to see what type of style this team is going to play. We got a taste of that in the Bahamas. I don't think this is going to be that much different, but it is another competition, another university. Now, Christian Brothers is known for usually running a Princeton offense, with a lot of old school, slow it down, a lot of different type of movement in their offense. But they got a new coach. And from what I heard about Coach Riley, they play a defensive-oriented style. And that was a quote from him. So I don't know what that means, defensive, because you do have to play offense at some point. So I don't know what they're going to do offensively, but it seems like they're going to put a lot of pressure on the Tigers' offense when the Tigers are on the offensive side of the court. So that'll be something interesting to see. But don't get me wrong. With the level of athletes that Memphis has coming in, this should not be close. It shouldn't be close at any point. It should be a game where the Tigers are running up and down, dunking, and smashing this opponent. Period. And I think that's what we're going to see. I think, physically and everything else. They're too big. Memphis is too big. They're too athletic. They're too fast. They're too much better than Christian Brothers. So we'll see, man. But I think it's just good to see them out on the court and get a feel of what some of the lineups are going to be. Because to me, that's the biggest point of interest to me. We've talked about, you got Tyler Harris, Alex Lomax, how they're going to fit in with this new crop of mega recruits. Because these are not, as Penny Hardaway said multiple times, these are not your average freshmen. These are super freshmen, meaning they're used to the game, meaning that there's not going to be a huge learning curve because they are extraordinary at what they do. So, hence the expectations. Now, Penny also said he was surprised that the Tigers were ranked 14th in the nation in the first AP poll. So, he feels like, hey, when you have the number one recruiting class in the country coming off that, and last year's Tigers team was not terrible. You bring back a couple of guys from that team, you would think they would be ranked a little higher, but he's not worried about that. And he thinks that's just going to be more fuel to this team to overachieve some of the expectations. Now, I know one thing. Memphis, he doesn't have to worry about people in Memphis underestimating. If anything, they're overestimating. I remember the other day when I put the poll out on the Tigers Facebook groups, most of those people said, hey, I expect at least to be winning a championship. I'm talking about at least. They're talking about at least win a championship. That's the highest goal you can achieve. There were a lot of Final Fours, a lot of Elite Eights, a lot of people just went with the vague route, a deep tournament run. So you can go with that. And a lot of people I've talked to feel the same way, that you got to win the conference championship in the regular season and the tournament, and that you have to have a deep run in the NCAA tournament. And in all honesty, I like to temper expectations. I want to see what they look like, but let's be real here. This isn't a normal year. This is a year where your center is projected to be the number one pick in the draft, meaning the NBA considers this guy to be a superstar at the next level. That's what they're saying. NBA draft experts and scouts. And this is after coming to look at Wiseman personally in practice at the NBA draft day. Come out of that and confirm their thoughts that James Wiseman is the number one pick in next year's NBA draft. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. And whenever you have a team that has the projected number one pick on your team, you're not going to get away with not having a deep NCAA tournament run. Just ask Duke last year with Zion Williamson. who was the number one pick. Everybody knew Zion was going to be the number one pick before he even got to college. And with those expectations, they say, hey, they better make a deep run. You got all this talent. It's going to be up to you, coach, to make this big run. And I think that's the pressure Penny has put on himself. And to his fairness, to his credit, he's not running from it. So he says, when you have your catchphrase, this is Penny's phrase, he's saying it all the time, we want all the smoke. That means bring your smoke, bring your fire, bring your pressure, bring your hate, bring your love, bring it all. We want it. That's what Penny has been saying. The man came out with a hoodie with "We Want All the Smoke" on it and a bunch of smoke shooting out of the floor. He wants it. I love that. So we're going to give it to him. And I expect a deep tournament run this year. That's me going on the record. I expect the AAC championship in the regular season. I expect the AAC tournament championship. And I expect a deep run in the NCAA tournament. So that's my going on the record. And when I go Facebook Live again in the future, I'm going to go on the record again to let the people know there as well. So it is what it is, man. But y'all let me know what you think. Is that shooting too high, too low, or what it is? But I don't think it is, man. I think it's shooting right where you need to shoot. And that's for wherever the smoke is. So that's going to do it for me on today, man, on this Spreaker exclusive edition of Talkback Live Sports here on this Thursday. Man, I appreciate everybody out there for listening, whether you're listening live or you're listening to the podcast version later on Spotify, on Google Podcasts, and on iHeartRadio app as well. Also on the website, TalkBackLiveNetwork.org. All of those places, I appreciate you for taking the time out. Be sure you follow our social media, Twitter at TalkBackLive, one word, at TalkBackLive. Follow our Facebook pages, Talkback Live with Bob and Josh, Talkback Live Network, and WTBL Talkback Live Network to keep up with all things Talkback Live related. So, without any further ado, man, I appreciate y'all for coming in with me on this Thursday afternoon. Enjoy the football, enjoy the basketball, enjoy everything that's coming up this weekend, and I will talk to you guys next time.
Go hard, go hard, go home, go home, go hard, go hard, go home, go home, go hard, go hard, go home, go home, go hard, go hard, go home, go home. Let's go, let's get it, let's get it. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you with it? Yeah, we with it. Let's go, let's get it, let's get it. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you with it? Yeah, we with it. Big time players make big time.
If you're looking for some of the best old-fashioned burgers in town, Lotta Burger is the place to go for all of your favorites. Lotta Burger, 2260 South 3rd, Memphis, Tennessee, 901-946-2001. They're open Monday through Saturday from 10 a.m. to 6:45 p.m. And the items on their menu include single, double, triple burgers, Philly sandwiches, smoked sausage, beef hot dog, grilled cheese, tenders, fries, onion rings, and more. Call in orders must be done before 11 a.m. No calls accepted after 11 a.m. Drive-thru is available. Hungry for a burger? Lotta Burger, 2260 South 3rd, Memphis, Tennessee, 901-946-2001. Don't just settle for any burger. Get a Lotta Burger.
Big Graphic Printing, located at 890 East Range Road in Memphis, a complete print shop for all your printing needs. They do it all. Color copy, resume, funeral program, rubber stamp, full color business cards, wedding and graduation invitations, and more. 30 plus years of quality work and service. They're open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Located at 890 East Range Road in Memphis, Tennessee, 901-345-9294. Big Graphic Printing.
Are you tired of going to the doctor with the same issue over and over again and never getting any relief? Are you tired of buying all types of vitamins and supplements, hoping but not knowing for sure that they will keep you healthy? Or are you getting enough of the right kind of nutrients that your specific body needs? If you answer yes to any of these questions, you need a nutritional blood analysis. With a nutritional blood analysis, we can take one drop of blood from a prick of your finger and analyze your body's nutritional needs, nutritional deficiencies, and nutritional imbalances. This analysis can provide an early warning of possible future health challenges, so you can make changes now to avoid the negative outcome. A nutritional blood analysis can be used to monitor a health challenge before and after adopting an approach to restore health and balance. It will also allow you the ability to determine the effectiveness of various approaches to restoring and balancing your health. So don't wait. Make your appointment. Stop guessing with your health. Know what works for sure. 901-602-7063.
CJU's Appliances, located at 3530 Jackson Avenue here in Memphis, Tennessee. Call them at 901-487-7882. CJU's Appliances has the best prices in town. Sales and service, heating and air. Also the best appliances you'll find anywhere in the Mid-South. Refrigerators, microwave stoves, washers and dryers, deep freezers, dishwashers, whatever you need in used appliances. And folks will tell you they're the best used appliances anywhere you'll find. That's CJU's Appliances, 3530 Jackson Avenue. All appliances come with warranty. You can call them at 901-487-7882. Again, 901-487-7882. CJU's Appliances.